All right, well, welcome everyone to change management and the CMDB. These are two different kind of aspects or functions or processes or Cherwell, whatever you want to call them. Change management is one, the CMDB is the other. We're smashing them together for this class because they're pretty closely related, and also because, you know, we don't want to make you come to an extra class. So we'll just get it all in at once so you can kind of understand it. Again, my name is Jordan Jeffers, if you forgot it or you haven't been in a class with me yet. What we're going to do today is going to be pretty similar to what we've always done. So we're going to go through a lot of stuff together up on the screen and then in Cherwell itself. And then we're going to take a break, and then you can come back and do the activity that I gave you guys. Did anyone not get the activity guide? Everybody got that? I sent it out this morning. All right, cool. So we'll go through that, and then some people, of course, they like to skip their break and just do the activity and leave early, so you're welcome to do that too, if that's you. And please interrupt me if you have a question. All right, don't wait for me to stop and ask, because I probably won't do that, at least in time for you to remember what your question is. So today, again, we're kind of splitting the class up a little bit into two halves. So the first half is really going to be focused on change management, second half more on the CMDB. So within change management, we're going to talk about the three different kinds of changes. I'm going to show you, or take you through kind of the change life cycle. We'll do that towards the end, really. And I'm going to show you how to create a change request and then link configuration items to changes. Right at that point, we'll sort of switch gears and go into the CMDB. So we'll talk again, kind of remind you what that is and what all the configuration items are that are going to be in this first phase, and then how to search for those, how to view relationships there, and then how to update configuration items as well. So that's kind of what we're covering today. So just to begin with, as a reminder, change management, come on in, there's a sign-in sheet right here. And then I've got login information on the board if you've forgotten it or need it. So change management is an ITIL process, and in ITIL terms, a change is just any sort of addition, modification, or removal of an IT service. So the point of change management is just to control that change so that it doesn't actually disrupt any services for our customers. So a change could be something really small, like a software update could be a change, or it could be something really big, like we're replacing our entire ERP, right? Like we're putting in Campus Solutions, a whole new student information system. That's a giant change. Software update, pretty small. Both of them could be considered changes. The changes that you will track will, of course, depend on your policies and what you think are important enough things to track. Now, there are three different kinds of changes. The first one is a standard change, and this is any kind of pre-authorized change that we have an established procedure for. So this would be your software updates or small little things like that, that you know, okay, anytime we, I don't know, add a student group in Campus Solutions, or anytime we do whatever, that's a standard change. We kind of know what we're doing there. The second kind of change is an emergency change, and that's just a change that has to be made very quickly, or else we're going to have some serious interruptions to our services. And a lot of times we've already had a really serious incident or serious interruption, and so the emergency change is going in place to correct that. And there's a whole group called the Emergency Change Advisory Board that deals with some of these things and puts that stuff in place. So the third type of change is just anything else. Okay, so if it's not a standard change or an emergency change, it's a normal change, and that's all other changes, and typically these require some sort of approval process to begin and then to kind of go in place. Right, so this would be a lot of different things. You know, we're moving from Microsoft Word 2007 to 2012 or whatever. Right, that'd be a standard change, or a normal change, excuse me. Okay, so let's then just go ahead and get into Cherwell. So I'm going to open mine up. And if you haven't logged in already, please do so. And just remember, when you put in your user ID, you must put ADILSTU / in front of your ULID, and then your password is just your regular password. So I will log in. Eventually. Here we go. All right, so we're going to start just by kind of creating a brand new change. Okay, so to do that, you're going to go up to your new menu, top left corner. Okay, it's kind of to the right of your home button a little bit. Click on that drop-down menu there, and you'll see the second option within that says New Change Request. So just click on that. Okay, so scenario here is we're going to replace a projector in one of our classrooms with a brand new 3D holograph because we have that technology now and the funding because the state came through, right? Haha. And so we're going to have to track that change because the change could have a potential impact on services, right? Our professors may not be able to show their presentations if the projector isn't working or the 3D projection system isn't working. So when we open up the new change record, you're going to see, first of all, a bunch of statuses along the top, and we'll get to those in a second. But the first thing you can really change is this drop-down menu that says Change Type. And if you click on that, you'll notice the 3 different types of changes there that I just talked about. Normal, emergency, and standard. So you would select which one is applicable here. In this case, it's just a normal change, so we're going to leave it as the default, which is normal. All right, then you're going to put in a title. So this again should be something descriptive enough that if you're scanning through a list of search results, you know what this change is about. So I'm going to put in something like projector replacement, and then the room number, Julian Hall 123. That's our training lab over in Julian. So I want the 3D projection system. Okay, and then you just describe it, right? So we will be replacing the projector with a 3D holograph. I can spell correctly. All right, so you would add in whatever details you need to there to describe the change. I'm going to show you some tabs along the bottom where you can put a lot more information about it. This is really just a basic description of what's happening, right? Not necessarily how you're going to do it or backup plans or things like that. So once you've given it a title and a description, then you're going to further classify it according to what services it's going to impact or could potentially impact. So that first drop-down menu underneath description says services impacted, and if you click on it, you'll see that same list of 10 different services that we've seen in every single class. So every record we create, basically, no matter what it was, we've had to choose what sort of service that record was related to. So in this case, we're going to choose which service this change will impact. And in this is one of those situations where your first instinct may not be right. Like my first instinct here, because I'm replacing a projector, would be to go to like equipment and software. But because I'm dealing with a learning space, what I'm actually going to choose here is teaching and learning, right? Third from the bottom. And so again, if you kind of don't know what those are or you want to learn more information about them, there are help articles, knowledge articles in the Cherwell knowledge base about all the service catalogs. So just search for service catalog in your knowledge article search, and you'll find a bunch of stuff there related to that. Okay, so then within the service impacted, we have to choose a category. So if you click on that, you'll see there's my computer labs category, which is the second one under that service category drop-down menu. So I'll select that. Going to the right, we see a field that says primary CI impacted. We're going to skip over this for now because we're going to talk all about those during the CMDB half. So moving on down then underneath that to the priority field. This is just a free-form sort of text field that allows you to put in whatever priority is applicable to your team. So you might have a priority system that's high, medium, low, or 1, 2, 3, or gold, silver, platinum. I don't know, whatever you want to do. Right? This is just allows you to choose that or enter that in, I should say, here. So I'm going to put this as a medium priority. We'll say that's part of my team's priority system. Okay. The next thing you put in there is the schedule information. So while you're first creating the record, the only thing you're really going to fill out is the desired completion date. So when do you want this finished by? So you can either type it in, or you'll notice there's a little calendar button on the right-hand side of that field you can click. And I'm going to pick I'm going to pick this Friday because it's my last day and I want to use it by the time I leave. So we'll put in this Friday. All right, now once you have come back to the record later, right, and it starts, you'll fill something out in the work started date, and that'll be once work actually starts on the change. And then once it's fully in place, you'll put a date and the date implemented. Okay, those fields you won't fill out, of course, when you initially create the record. Underneath the date implemented field, you'll see a checkbox that says related to project. Go ahead and check that. And you'll see what happens is another field will show up that says related project number, where you can put in that project number if applicable. So this may not, this may change, could be related to a project. A lot of changes are. But if not, just leave this unchecked. It's not required. Then you have to indicate whether a business case is required or not. So in this case it's not, so I'm going to choose not required. But if you wanted to or needed to put a business case on here, you could choose attached, and that would indicate that you've actually attached it as a file to this record. And the way to do that is actually up in your toolbar. If you've never seen this before, this is the same in every single record type you'll ever see in Cherwell. There's a paperclip kind of in the center section of that toolbar. And if you click on that drop-down menu for the paperclip, you'll see a bunch of options where you can attach things. So you would choose attach a file, import, and then you could pull a Word document off of your machine and attach it to this change record. If it was, if the business case was somewhere like on a SharePoint site or something, you could click on the link radio button and then put in the hyperlink or the web address there. Won't actually be a live link, of course, but you can put the address there. But I'm going to go ahead and choose not required because I don't need to put a business case for this particular change. So that's kind of the main content there. Now if you look on the left-hand side, you'll see three different sorts of important fields here, one right after the other. The first one is the requester. Okay, so this should say your name, right, by default. But what you can do is change this if you need to. Okay, so if you want to, for example, put somebody else in as the requester, you could click on so you'll see two buttons on the far right side of the requester field. The leftmost one is called the selector button. This is the same as you've seen in other places, probably in other classes. And if you click on that button for me, you'll see a new window open up that has the ability to search, so you can kind of search for whoever you want. So I want everyone to go ahead and search for Justin Smith. He's my team leader. And then hit OK. Is he not in there? Let's see. Oh, you need to hit the Go button, I'm sorry. That's on the far right side near the search window. And once you find him, just double click on his name and it'll show up there in the requester field. So again, you could type the person's name out if you needed to. If you type it out incorrectly, the search window will just automatically pop open for you. Underneath the requester, you can see the business partner. So if you click on the business partner drop-down menu, this allows you to select the kind of division or unit or whatever it is that you're partnering with to implement this change. So in a lot of cases, this may be different from the IT team that's implementing the change, right? So if let's say admissions is requesting this 3D projector in their conference room, then the business partner would be admissions. Right? But in this case, since the projector replacement is in Julian Hall, the business partner is actually going to be the AT business office, because they're the ones that kind of control that room. So you can think of, you may have more than one business partner, and you can actually enter in additional ones in the arrangement, which I'll show you to in a second. But you can just think of this as the team or other group you're partnering with to do this. Now right underneath that, you'll see kind of a separate thing that says owned by. So these are all three different groups. They're different entities, right? So the requester is different from the business partner, is different from who owns the record. The owner is the one who's responsible for this particular change record. It's the team or person who is responsible for kind of shepherding it and updating it and getting it from the request stage through the release stage. So whoever you put in here is going to get an email sent to them when this record is saved, indicating to them you are now the owner of X change record. So it should default to your team name. What I want you to do is go ahead and pick AT Training as the team. So to do that, you can click on your team name, and then you'll see a prompt window up that says select a team, and you can click on the drop-down menu to select it. AT Training is at the bottom of the AT section. Or you can click on this little ellipsis button to the right, and a new window will open up that allows you to search. But go ahead and pick AT Training for me. And then to select an owner, you click on the select owner link, right? A particular person. It's right underneath the team link. And then you can select a user and go ahead and pick me as the person who owns this change. Right? So when that happens, I will be the one who gets the email if this is ever saved. Now you also notice there's a checkbox right underneath that says secure to owning team. Okay, so this prohibits the record from being edited by anyone other than the team listed there that's owned. Any questions on those? So those three kind of groups, right? So requester, business partner, owned by, those are all different things. So a particular person might be requesting it as part of a team that's your business partner, but the record itself is owned by me. Question?
Secure to owning team. If I check that, does that mean I can't edit it?
So the question is, if I check secure to owning team, does that mean I can't edit it? It does if you didn't pick your team. Yeah. Right, so if you pick another team and then select secure to owning team, once the record's saved, you won't be able to edit it anymore. You may have to navigate away and come back. I'm not really sure. I haven't tested that specifically, but that's kind of the idea. Any other questions? Okay, so let's talk about all the stuff sort of down towards the bottom here. So again, this bottom section with all these tabs, this is called your arrangement. If you've never heard me say that term before, anytime I tell you click on your arrangement or go to your arrangement, that's what I mean. And I'm going to pull mine up kind of high so we can see it better on my screen. So this first two tabs here are related to approvals, and the very first one is called governance approvals, and this is related, really this was built for AT because there's a lot of sort of processes that AT does that are related to what you see here. So in the left hand side you can see asks you whether the application steward has approved this change or not. So the application steward is the person responsible for the application that's being changed. Right, so if you guys have something like that on your team, you can feel free to use this tab as well, or you can feel free to ignore it. But I'm going to say yes, this was approved, and then you can choose who the application steward is. So again, I can put in my name here, just Jordan Jeffers. You can put in decision date, whatever that is, and then comments. Okay. A lot of times, like in AT, for example, this information here would probably be filled out by like a business analyst. A lot of times business analysts are the owners of change records. Then on the right-hand side, you can see there's approvals you can put in for a governing body. So the Data Stewardship Council is a big one, of course, with AT. Then we also have a couple other sort of generic options there, internal and other. So you can kind of choose whatever you want there. If you choose other, it actually allows you to type in the name of the council or governing body or whatever. And then the same stuff, right? The decision, date, and comments. So that's governance. Feel free to use that if it's applicable to you. If not, you can use the second one, which is individual approvals. If you click on that, this lets you ask for approval from specific people. So to do that, just click on the new approval button in the top left corner of the individual approvals tab. And you'll see a couple fields pop open and allows you again to put in the approver name. So again, you can just type in my name there. It's the approver. If you need to select it from the list, you have the same selector button we've seen before on the right-hand side of that field. And then you can put in additional comments or additional information for the approver. So, please review by Thursday or something, whatever you need to put in there. Okay. Now, once you save this whole record, this works the same as it does in the incidents and service request class if you've taken that class. Once you save this whole record, that approval will generate an email that'll get sent to whoever you put as the approver there. So they'll get an email that asks, please approve X. Okay, they'll be able to actually approve it from the email. They'll have links in there. They can just click on the links to indicate that they've approved it. And if they want to put in comments, they can do that. And then those comments will show up here in the decision comments field. If they just communicate their approval to you in particular, you could come in here as well and click the approve button and put their comments in there for them. And you can continue to add as many approvals as you need to simply by just clicking that new approval button over and over and over. And you notice as you do that, to the right, you'll see it'll say record, number of whatever, right? So as you add them, you'll see how many total you have. And if you continue to follow that along to the right, you'll see a view button on the far right side. And if you click that, you can see the whole list and the status of each. To remove one, just select it and then hit this little red X to the right of the new approval button. And now they'll go away. Pretty simple. All right, the next tab is the technical analysis tab. Oops. Okay, so this is where you're going to put in probably a lot more detail about this change that you may not necessarily have put in the description. So you can see here all these different fields, right? Risk, necessity, backout plan, impact assessment, feasibility, and implementation steps. So depending on the change or your own team's policies, you may or may not have to fill some of this information out, right? If you've created a business case for this, a lot of this information may be on the business case documentation. And so you could put see business case or copy from your business case into these particular fields, whatever is appropriate for your team. But each of these should be kind of self-explanatory about, what you put in here. The risk is, what's the risk, right? What could possibly go wrong? Like the projector system comes alive and starts terrorizing people or something. I don't know what the risk is of a 3D projector, but there you go. So all that stuff goes in there. Okay. Journals, which is the next one, we've seen in other classes. This is identical to that. It's just a free-form sort of text field. You can put whatever information you need to in here. And to do that, you just click on the New Journal-Note button, and then the details field comes open, and you can type notes, whatever they are. Tasks. Again, if you've been in my other classes, you've seen this before. A task is just something that you assign to another team to ask for help with something. And in this case, you're asking for help with this change request. So you're saying you need to do X thing to implement this change request. And to do that, you just click the New Task button. The task field opens up, and you can choose a team to assign it to. If applicable, you can also pick a particular person on that team. And then you just type in what you need them to do. So I'm gonna AT training is gonna be who I assign it to. Title is test 3D system. Do a training dry run. Something like that. All right, so then again, after you save the whole record, that task will be emailed to the team or person, whoever you picked, whatever is applicable there. It'll also show up in their dashboard. That person will then acknowledge this task by clicking the acknowledge link on the left-hand side. They'll do whatever the task is, put the details of that completion in the completion details field, and then click the completed link along the left-hand side. That's what you'll do too, by the way, if you get a task assigned to you. And if this task is assigned to you and it shouldn't be, you can click on the misassigned link, which is the third one there. And then I also think it's a good idea to write in there why it shouldn't go to you, or to indicate the team that it should go to, if you know, so that people understand kind of where these things should go. And again, you can continue to add as many tasks as you want to just by clicking that New Task button over and over. All right, so configuration items, the next tab, we're going to skip over that. Again, we're going to talk about that again a lot more in the second half. So if you click on incidents, this allows you to link this change record to incident records. So this might be useful, for example, if you just implemented change and there's a bunch of incidents that come about as a result of it. Okay, you could then track those incidents here, so then you would know, all right, how many problems does this actually cause every time that we do, this particular change. So to add an incident here, to link it, you just click on this paperclip button in the upper left corner of the Incidents tab, and then you can search for whatever incident it is that's related to this change, and just double click it. It'll show up there underneath. Again, to add more, just keep hitting that paperclip button and repeating that process. To the right of that is related changes. So this actually enables you to link this to another change that might be going in as a result. So maybe we're also changing our power supply to support the new 3D projection system. So you can either create a brand new change request right from here by clicking this New Change Request button, or you can click on the paperclip again and select another one from the list. So paint the walls. Looks like somebody made that. Okay, there you go. The next one tab is departments. So we already picked our business partner here, but if this affected more than one department or unit or whatever, you could select those additional ones here. So again, click the paperclip to do that, left-hand side, and you'll see the full list of all the different departments across campus, organized by number, which is a little bit odd, I know, but you can search for them through that way. And let's say this also, I don't know, affects conference services, whatever. The Services tab, if you click on that, so again, we already chose a service initially as the main one, teaching and learning, as a service that was impacted by this change. But if there's additional services that are also affected, you can hit this paperclip and choose another one. So let's say this is also technology support and training. Okay, because that's also, we use it for training. And the last tab here, journal history, is just the sort of audit feature that shows up on everything across record types. This will record every single change that ever takes place to this particular change record. So every time somebody edits something or changes priority or the service impacted or whatever, that change will be recorded here. Okay, so I'm going to move my arrangement down then. And we're going to kind of finish talking about this about the statuses here. We're going to swing back around to the stuff at the top. So you'll notice a couple, let's see, 6 different statuses along the top of where this change is at. And I'm actually going to go to back to my PowerPoint. One second. Okay, to discuss these with you. So every single time you create a change, it'll start at the request status, right? That's the default. Once the change goes, so from there it can go to 2 places, I should say. It could go to review, which means that either the approver or the governing body or whoever is reviewing the change to see if they want it to be implemented. Or it could go to on hold, which basically just means no one's looking at this. Change record is just kind of sitting out there and waiting for someone to take a look at it. If it gets to the review stage, you can then go 2 places, right? Approve or deny. So the individual approver or the council could say, yep, we want to do that, or no, we're not going to do that. If they say no, of course, the change stops. If they approve it, then it'll go to the next series of steps here to initially queued. And queued means, yes, we've approved this, but we haven't actually started work on it yet. And normally it goes to that stage if it's been approved, but we don't have people to start actually completing the change request. But once it gets past the queued stage, it'll go to the build stage, which means someone's actually working on this. The release stage means we are currently implementing it, so that might be in that stage for, I don't know, an hour, a week, a month, depending on how long you want to define as your release period. And then once you've decided, all right, we're kind of past that stage, it's implemented, it's live, it's in production, then you will close the record. Okay, so that's sort of the idea there. Now to do that, to make those changes, you're going to see a couple different places that you can do that. So the first one is the status drop-down menu in the upper right corner. If you click on that, you'll see a bunch of the stuff that I just talked about, right? On hold, ready for review, approve, queued, build, release. What you're not seeing there are deny or close or whatever, right? And the reason you're not seeing those there is because you have to go to the left-hand side to actually create those changes or change that status. So if you want to do certain statuses, you use the status drop-down menu. If you want to do withdrawing, closing, or canceling the change, you have to look on the left-hand side under the I want to section, and you'll see those links there. Right? So withdraw and cancel are going to basically accomplish a similar thing, but it's you pick one based on who is actually doing the withdrawing or canceling. So if it's the requester who decided they don't want this change anymore, that's a withdraw. All right, if it's an individual or council approval that decided, no, we're going to deny this, that's a cancel. Does that make sense? Okay, and then of course closing the change is what you'll do once it's released into the wild, so to speak. By the way, once you close a change, it basically locks forever. So you would need like a system admin or someone to try to unlock it for you. if you click on that close or close it accidentally. So just kind of keep that in mind. You'll also see there are a couple options here, right? You can place it on hold either in the left or in the upper right corner of the status. And then it says nominate for standard change. And that actually allows you to, if you have a normal change that you feel like I'm doing these normal changes constantly, we pretty much have a process in place, we know how to do this, you can then nominate and say, can we make this a normal change so that I don't have to continue to get approval for this, etc. All right, any questions then on anything else on the change record? Anything you saw that you're wondering what it does, or yes, or a comment or question?
Any concern about the ability to approve without having any documentation that it's approved? If I call you on the phone for a change request and say, yep, you're fine, go ahead and do that, how are we going to track that 100 years from now or even 2 days from now?
Well, it'd have to be some sort of procedure you put in place. So if you wanted to make sure that you had some sort of documentation, then make sure the person sends an email, and then you could attach the email to the record or copy the email text over or whatever. Otherwise, unless, again, if you send an individual approval, they'll get an email automatically. So that'll automatically come through that way. But if it's something that, if you're uncomfortable with not having documentation, then just make sure you have it, I guess is my only answer to that. There are lots of ways you can get that in there. Question?
Once you withdraw the change,
Mm-hmm.
will that escalate an email to the people on that approval list saying that this has to be withdrawn and no further action is required from anyone?
So the question is, if I withdraw the change, is that going to send an email to all the approvals and let them know this change has been withdrawn? It will not, that I'm aware of. The list I have of automatic emails does not have that included, so you may have to notify them. If they try to approve it after it's been withdrawn, nothing's going to happen. So the record won't be updated.
And still see the change request and say the action is withdrawn?
The question is, will the change request still be in there? Yes, the change request will still be in the database. So you'll be able to review it. It'll probably just be in a read-only state because you've withdrawn it.
Reopen it?
So the question is, can you reopen it?
You can't. There's a link for it.
Yeah. So did you just do that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So yes. Other questions? Okay, so let's switch gears then and take a look at the CMDB. So what you can do is go ahead and hit the home button in the top left corner to go back to your default dashboard. And if it asks you if you want to save, you can just hit no. If you've already saved it, it's not a big deal, but you don't need to do that here. And let's just kind of remind ourselves what this CMDB thing is all about. So the CMDB, if you remember from the intro class, is a couple different things all in one place. So it's a big inventory of all the different kind of technical assets that we have across campus. And so those assets in ITIL terms are referred to as CIs, or configuration items, and they could be pretty much anything, right? So the monitors you're looking at could be CIs, the desktops you're working on could be CIs, the projector in this room could be a CI, the applications you're using are CIs, the network jacks, the servers, all kinds of stuff are CIs. And the point really of the CMDB is not just to keep an inventory or manage our assets that way, but it's also to understand dependencies and impacts between all the different CIs. So that if we have a server go down at one point, we know exactly what services that server supports, and so then we can know what to expect in terms of incidents that might come in when that server goes down. Now there are, like I said, lots of different levels at which you could do this. So at which you could participate in the CMDB. There's the really basic level of, I'm just going to put in all my different servers and their attributes and things like that. That's one level. Okay. There's another level where you put in the attributes and then you also track whether this is in use or retired, whether you've ordered something, whether it's in repair, that kind of thing. Then there's a third level, which is kind of the most complicated level, which is the actual connections and impacts and things between stuff. That third level, I'm going to admit to you, I know very little about. Okay, so I have an expert in the room in the back, Ballard, who I'm going to ask all of your most difficult questions to, that is on the CMDB team in AT and can kind of help explain that to you if it's something that you feel like your team wants to do. So I'm going to show you like examples of what's possible in here. Okay, and we're going to go over some of the basics. But if you're like, okay, I see that cool diagram and I want to create one of those, I'm going to say, meet with Ballard, set up a time, and he'll talk to you about how they're doing things and kind of explain to you how the tool works and how you could do this for your own CIs if it's something you want to do. So just keep that in mind. Feel free to ask questions if you've got them, because we have him in the room. But just know that probably won't be able to figure out exactly what you're going to do when you get back to your desk in class today. So just understand that. Now there are lots of different configuration items, like I said. And for this initial go-round, we're only going to be putting in configuration items that are related to our infrastructure. So eventually we'll get to the point where we put in configuration items about our desktops or laptops or end user kinds of CIs. But for now we're really just focused on the kind of big and underlying stuff. So to see that, you can actually see which ones we're going live with if you go back into Cherwell. And if you click on the New button, again the top left corner in your toolbar, you'll see the third option down says New Configuration Item. So if you want to create CIs and start doing that, you'll mouse over that New Configuration Item menu, and then you can see all the different infrastructure CIs that we're going to have when we go live. Well, all but one, which I'll say in a second. Okay, so a lot of those should kind of make sense to you of what they are, right? So an application instance, just to kind of review that list in case you're unsure. An application instance is typically, or is going to refer to some sort of app that's hosted. Okay, so something that does, is an app that runs on a hosted server or something like that. An application server is probably the most complicated one, and some of you may know more about it than I do. But it's basically, it sits on either a virtual or a physical server, and it usually serves multiple application instances. So in a lot of ways it's more of an organizing tool than an actual thing. Okay, but if you want to know, when do I use an app server? Again, talk to Ballard, and you'll see an example of that in the diagram we look at. A cloud resource is usually going to refer to something that our services are dependent on that we don't control in some way. So usually it's like, right, Oracle's databases and their kinds of servers, that's a cloud resource. Right, so we're dependent on it, so we have to put it in the diagram, but we don't really know a lot about it. We can't put in the exact servers that Oracle has, whatever. So those would be, considered cloud resources. An enclosure is just a big thing that holds a bunch of servers, if you've never heard that term before. A network jack is the thing in the wall that you plug your Ethernet cable into. Okay, that's different, by the way, from a network port, which is the thing on the computer. Right, we're putting in network jacks, not network ports in this case. A physical server, you should probably know what that is. It's the big black things that do everything. A storage solution is also more of like it's not really an organizing term. It does refer to a physical thing, but normally refers to a group of things. So it's like 5 or 6 servers that are all in a couple different enclosures or whatever, and we don't care about tracking each of them individually. They all sort of do the same thing. They all act in the same way, and so we just group them all together as a storage solution and put them in that way. A system is going to be a kind of a high level, you can almost think of it as a service in some ways, kind of the layman's version of the word service. So a system could be something like the one we're going to look at is crime advisory. That's a system, right? It does lots of things. So again, it's not really a particular item, it's more of like an idea or an organizing tool to indicate to you, what services are being offered. A system might also be campus solutions production, right, or something like that. That could be a system. And then the last one is a virtual server, which I don't even know how to explain a virtual server. It's a ghost of a black thing that sits on, that's kind of like the spirit of a server or something like that. I don't know. Let's go to my metaphysical terms there. Obviously you can have multiple virtual servers on one physical server and they can all do different things. Okay. So if you want to create some of these, this is where you'll go. New configuration item, and then choose the CI that you want to create. If you want to search for them, there's a couple different ways. So the first way is using your task pane. So if you open your task pane up on the left, if it's not already open, you'll see in the quick search drop-down menu, the third option says configuration item. So you can actually select that and search for configuration items in the quick search. You'll also notice right underneath the quick search, under the common task section, the second option in there says CMDB. So just click on CMDB, again, on the left-hand side, second button there. And a new window will open up that will allow you to kind of search in the center and have a big list of all of them. And if you don't like using your task pane or usually have it closed, you can get to the same thing by going to the Tools menu on the top, right, the second from the right, and then choosing the first option, CMDB. And that'll take you to the same place. So there's lots of search options here. You can click on this drop-down menu at the top and choose to search for particular CIs if you want to, rather than all of them. And then there are two radio buttons that allow you to search for configuration items for all customers or for a particular customer. Now the second one, for particular customer, you probably will never use until endpoints go in to the CI. And then you could search for the customer that's having a problem with their laptop. You could find their laptop in the CMDB by clicking on show config items for customer and then putting in that customer's name. So that the system will know this person owns this laptop, it'll show you that laptop there, and then you can view specs about it if you need to. Alright, so when you search, right, you can just type in whatever search term you want there. Go ahead and for me put in crime advisory. That's the example we're going to look at. And then hit the go button, or click enter, hit enter, excuse me. And you'll see 4 different records here. If you look in the second column, you'll see what CI type they are. So the first one is an application instance, and the other 3 are systems. And what I want you to do is double click on the second one, the one that's the first system, the one that just says crime advisory with nothing in parentheses after it. So double click on that to open it. And you'll see what looks like a fairly simple record. Okay, so for systems, there's not a lot there really to look at. I'm going to minimize my task pane here. You'll basically just see a friendly name, what kind of subtype it is. Okay, if you click on that, you can see other sorts of subtypes, system subtypes. The description of it, primary use and purpose. The purpose field there is usually going to refer to some sort of industry term for what this is used for. Okay, so notification system in this case. And what I want you to do is along the left-hand side, you will see a link that says view the CI/network map under I want to. Click on that for me. And what should happen is that a new window will open up, okay, that has a big giant chart on it. I'm going to zoom in just slightly here. Whoop. Kind of move this over. There we go. Okay, and what you're seeing here is an example diagram of all the different dependencies that go into creating the system crime advisory at the top. So you'll see crime advisory at the top. You can see it's dependent on other systems. Anything in yellow there is another system. And then if you follow that down, you'll see those systems are dependent on application instances, which are dependent on application servers in green, which are dependent on virtual servers in purple, which are dependent on physical servers in whatever that color is, tan, I don't know. Okay, so each of these different levels, you can kind of see what's dependent on what. So this allows us to see, okay, we had JX01 just failed. Our monitoring software picked that up. What is that going to affect? Then we know, okay, well, it's going to affect this particular email service, which supports crime advisory, which supports the larger crime advisory system. So that's the kind of end goal, I guess I would say, of this whole process. This is really complicated, right? And it's really useful. So if it's something that you want to do, again, talk to Ballard and he can kind of help you with that. Now the cool part about this is that from this configuration kind of map, which is what this is called, you can actually view the same sort of thing from any place within the map. So what I want you guys to do is, I want you to right-click on this purple record that says Sybil-DB. It's in the left-hand side, second kind of column there. It says purple, it's purple, it says Sybil-DB. Right-click it, and then I want you to click on the second option there that says Go to Record. All right, this is going to take you to the virtual server record. So you can see here, there's lots of different fields here that are different from the ones we saw in the system. Okay, there's more options and more kind of asset tags and things like that in here. But you can view the same sort of map by clicking on the same link. So you notice it has the same link, view the CI/network map. Just go ahead and click on that. And now the map you will see looks a little bit different. Okay? So by default, what you're going to see is the whatever item you're looking at is going to be on the top, and then it's going to show you everything downstream of it, which means everything that it is dependent on. If you want to see the upstream things, the things that are dependent on it, so if I want to see what's dependent on the Sybil database virtual server, if you look in the right-hand corner, you'll see a bunch of different checkboxes, and the first one is in blue and says upstream. Click on that checkbox. And then you'll see a bunch of other items show up also underneath it. So it's a little bit confusing because it's still underneath, right? So it still kind of looks like this is dependent on these other things, but you'll notice that the arrow color is different. So the arrows of upstream items are in blue, the arrow of downstream are in green. So everything that's connected with a green arrow, this thing at the top is dependent on. Everything that's connected with a blue arrow is dependent on the thing at the top. Makes sense? And it's not showing you the whole list, right? It's not showing you every single crime advisory thing that we saw earlier. It's just showing you up to the very top level, right? The crime advisory. I don't know if I can make this larger. I don't think so, but the actual crime advisory main system we looked at a second ago. So just keep that in mind if you're looking at something that's kind of downstream and you don't see everything you think you should. You might check that checkbox to see the upstream things as well. And you can do that same thing from here. So go ahead and right click on the Sybil physical server on the left hand side and then choose go to record again. Okay, and now we're looking at a physical server, and again we see different sorts of fields here to describe this physical server and all of its kind of components. So if you have kind of questions about some of these fields, I probably won't be able to answer them for you because I know very little about hardware. But if it's something that you're filling out, you should probably know what these are. Okay. Now, you'll notice along the left-hand side, though, you'll see a couple different sort of important fields here. So the first one along the top is the status. And if you click on that status drop-down menu, you'll see different sort of statuses that could apply to the CI. So right now it says in use. If this went missing or stolen, you could pick missing or stolen, right? If it was being taken offline, you could choose retired, etc. You'll see this same list of options on every single CI, even if they don't necessarily apply. Right, so you'll see the same list on the virtual server, even though we never have an ordered virtual server. For example, you never have a stolen virtual server, probably, hopefully. So I don't know how that even happened, but who knows? Ghost thieves, I guess.
If they took the hardware was on.
If they took the hardware was on, that's true. Yeah, it'd also be stolen. So if it doesn't apply, of course, just ignore it, right? Just pick the statuses that actually apply there. Then underneath that, you'll actually see something that's blank right now, but it says open incidents. Okay, so anytime that someone creates an incident record and then links that incident record to a CI as the primary CI, it'll actually start counting a number there, and it'll show you how many incidents are related to this particular physical server. So as they come in, you'll see, oh my gosh, we have 35 incidents related to this server, something's going wrong with this. Then underneath that, we have three different drop-down menus that refer to three different sort of entities, right? The first one is the CIT owner, and the CIT owner, not the CIT, that's a conference in the summer. Please go to it if you haven't been, it's nice. The CIT owner is the person or the IT team that is responsible for maintenance on whatever this configuration item is, so they're responsible for support. So in this case, it's AT apps. The business owner is the entity that's responsible for, you can say, the inventory of the item, the actual owner of the item. So you might have an IT owner that's a support staff, but like the computers in the lab might be supported by COB support, but the actual owner is the College of Business itself, right? It's a separate kind of thing. And then purchaser, of course, self-explanatory, whoever bought it, which typically will be the same thing as the owner, but may not be. Business owner, I should say, but may not be. Okay, and then of course we have a ton of different tabs, like always, down here at the bottom. I'm not going to go over all these like we have with the other stuff, because these tabs will change based on which CI you're looking at. So a lot of them, though, you should be familiar with. So we have like journals. Here's the same thing. Incidents, change requests, services, tasks. Those are all the same. The baseline changes tab, kind of towards the far right, that's the same thing as the journal history. It's kind of the automatic audit sort of thing. So every time something changes on this record, it'll show up in baseline changes. And then the other tabs are typically other CIs. Okay, so you can link these, whatever CI you're looking at, to other kinds of CIs like storage solutions or virtual servers or app servers or app instances, network ports, systems, etc. And all those tabs work exactly the same way as every other tab you've seen, where you would click on the paperclip button on the left-hand side, find the CI that you want to link, and then put it in there. Now, if this is something you want to do right away, the sort of suggestion I have from the CMDB team is always to start from the bottom up. So always start with your physical servers first, and then kind of move from there. You should do that mostly because the system will require you to. Okay, so if you start off by trying to create a virtual server, it's going to ask you what physical servers does this sit on. And if the physical server is not in the system, it won't actually let you complete the record. So when you create stuff like that, you're actually going to be creating relationships automatically already. So when you create a virtual server, again, you have to specify what virtual server it's on, and that'll automatically create a dependency relationship between that virtual server and the physical server. And that's the same for a couple different items, kind of the lower level items in the CMDB tree. It's really only when you get to the system level that things start getting complicated and that you kind of need to think through stuff before you actually start putting stuff in. All right, any questions on the CMDB stuff? So putting this all together then, right? If you go up to your new menu again for me, click on new and choose new change request, second option there. Now you kind of understand more fully on this record and on other kinds of records what this primary CI impacted is really referring to there. So you could pick a system here. You could pick server. Again, when we get endpoints in there, you'll be able to pick particular computers or laptops, things like that. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention, there's actually going to be, so in that big list that we have in our new configuration items, see all those lists of different CIs there? There's actually another one that's called software that's not in there yet that you'll also be able to pick from. Software, so application instance is again those apps that are hosted. Software are kind of apps that are locally hosted on a particular machine, or generally locally hosted on particular machines. So eventually there'll be one that says software, and then you'll be able to pick things from that as well. Okay, so again, there's the primary CI impacted, and then we have our configuration items tab at the bottom where we can put additional ones. All right, any questions on any of that? Bowers, anything you wanted to add that I forgot? You can say no.
I know Carla had really expressed the importance of attaching systems when there's, if we're like the crime advisory, for instance, if there was something wrong with it, it's the system level, that top system level, that we want to attach to, because it includes everything in there. Then they can do time tracking, they can do reporting and stuff like that. I know that was important to Carla, to keep that in mind. If it is in fact a server that's broken, identify the server. And most of the time you're not going to know that. So.
Yeah, so if you're, especially with incidents and stuff as well, if you're putting in a primary CI, generally speaking, I think the idea is you want to do the highest level one that really applies, and then kind of go down to lower level ones if those apply. So pick the system or software or app instance, whatever the highest one is, you can pick first before you choose the underlying structure ones. Question?
Yeah, can you go into a little more detail between how to differentiate when we're creating these, so we're knowing we're creating the right one, especially between application instance and application server, because I'm not sure necessarily what some of our things would fall under.
Yeah, so the question is, can you differentiate more between what's the difference between application instance and application server? And I'm actually I'm gonna ask Ballard to field that one, because again, I'm a little shady sometimes on all these. I don't want to say the wrong thing, and I'll try to stand next to you so I'll pick up in the mic.
The easiest example by far would be if we were to look at Sysserv 25. It's a database server. So there are many databases hosted there, and each database is an instance of the database, whereas the database server itself that's creating all those databases, that's the server. Does that make sense? And
that's the app server.
right.
Yeah.
Database on it would be a application instance.
Yeah, and the app servers have subtypes, so it would be subtype database or subtype web app or something like that.
I think that much sense, so you see it in the drawing. It's a structural thing. It helps identify all the pieces so that if something goes wrong with the server, you're attaching to that rather than one of the individual databases on it.
Yeah, so what Ballard said, which I'm sure they couldn't pick up on this mic, was that it's an app server is more of an organization tool, so that if something goes wrong, you're connecting to kind of a server level rather than a application instance level. Is that a correct summary?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Ballard, another example of maybe you have application server A, and within it you have a prod and a dev and a test instance running on that server.
That would be one way to do it. We actually have environments as a subtype of system also. If you're doing more than your production environment, you're really diving deep into CMDB. That gets complicated quick, because in a lot of cases you'll be sharing resources amongst. We've seen this. It's not good practice. If you map it and you see it, then it should convince your partner to do it differently. But if you have cases where resources are shared between environments, those drawings are very difficult to make accurate.
So just to summarize what happened there for the for everyone else. So Rob asked, so would another example of an app server be if we had multiple environments on one server, for example? So we had production, test, and dev, for example. And Ballard's response to that was, well, you could do it that way, but it gets complicated really fast. So a better way to do it might actually be at the system level. And so those are the sorts of questions where those are great questions, and you want to figure out exactly what works best. And that's why you really need to kind of sit down and think through it, in a meeting, kind of with more of an expert than I am, to figure out, so you don't start doing things. You don't start putting stuff in there and then realize, oh, this is all wrong, and now I got a whole mess on my hands, and I got to rechange all these dependencies.
If you look at system, one of the subtypes is environment.
It's environment type.
Currently, that's how we work that out.
Other questions? Okay. Well, if you do have questions, again, further ones, you can talk to me or Ballard, whichever one you kind of think would be more helpful for you. So we'll officially go on a break, and you can take 10 minutes until it says 10:15 on that clock, and I will pause my recording here. When you get back from your break, you can start your activity guide. All right, so just remember right at the end here, whenever you're doing a change request, if you are making a new change record, you want to put in some sort of technical analysis for anything that's not a standard change. And then remember, once you close a change, it is going to lock. So unless it's withdrawn or something like that, you won't be able to reopen it. So just remember, before you close it, be sure that's what you want to do. Remember that when you are creating a change, if you want to link more configuration items than the primary one, just use that tab down at the bottom to do that. And then lastly, to search the CMDB, just go to your Tools menu and select CMDB, and you'll find it there. So this is our email address if you have any questions. This will go to everybody on the training team. And I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording now.